This is Weekly Woman by Jubilance for PMS.
We're so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Yes. So I want to know, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Nova Scotia. So I live in Nova Scotia right now, Halifax, Nova Scotia to be specific, but I'm from Bermuda originally. So I've recently moved to Canada.
That's amazing. When did you move?
I came in 2019 and then left in 2020, like end of 2020, and then mid 2020, and then came back in 2021. So let's just say 2021.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that must have been like a weird time to move too, during like the height of the pandemic and everything.
Well, moved back. So I moved back to Bermuda with COVID and all the restrictions. I'm like, okay, let's go back home. And then we came back once everything was over. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Come back. And what's your favorite part about Nova Scotia?
It's beautiful. It's what I love, especially where we are in Halifax, right? I just love how it's the perfect mix to me of country and city. Like you got a bit of both and they're literally 20 minutes apart. So you can take 10 minutes or 20 minutes and you could go see the ocean. Then you could come to the city and then you could be in the countryside in all of a half hour space.
Oh my gosh.
So I love that.
That all sounds amazing, to get the ocean and the city in and like the countryside. That sounds incredible. Yeah. What's like the best non-touristy spot if listeners were going to visit your area?
Okay. And do you mean here in Nova Scotia or in
Bermuda?
In
Nova Scotia.
In Nova Scotia. So for me, I like all things Canada because I'm from a subtropical island, right? So what may be fun to me may not be fun for anybody else, but there's like the skate parks and things like that where you can be in the snow. And like, for me, that's fun. I know for Canadians, they're like, listen, I've seen snow all my life. I don't care about it, but I love to see just the beauty on like Citadel Hill and just all the spaces that's just so beautiful to me.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you are brand new to like all the snow and everything. Bermuda is like so different.
And of course I've seen snow before. Bermuda's 21 square miles, right? So I've traveled a lot, and if not, you get island fever. You have to get out of the country multiple times a year. But this is the first time I've lived in a country where there's like snow very often. I lived in Venezuela for a short bit as an exchange student as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing. So like all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about your podcast? So you have a podcast called Freedom Slay. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So my Freedom Slay podcast is really where we help entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. We have everyone from those looking to start side hustles to those who have 7, 8, and 9-figure businesses already that come and they listen into the interviews with other experts. We have like Jamie Schmidt, who sold Schmidt's Naturals, that deodorant that you can find like anywhere, to Unilever for 9 figures recently. We've had Forbes featured everybody. We've had best-selling authors and Olympic folk, and just we've had a lot of people on the podcast. And Olympic gold medalists and everyone. So they really come there to learn how they can accelerate their business and their life as an entrepreneur running that business. So they come to learn tactics, they come to learn the journey of those who've done it before them, whether they're looking to exit their business or they're looking simply to grow it for their family in the future. So we have everyone on there.
That's incredible. And how did you start this? How did you think that you wanted to look into business and look into entrepreneurship?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur since my book came out in 2015, and that was really just the start of it. So I have a book as well, and that came out in 2015, and I started at that point realizing that the office wasn't for me. Growing up, I saw the office and climbing the corporate ladder as what success was. That is what I saw just mirrored to me on television. And I realized really quickly that that just wasn't my journey. And the Alchemist book, actually, as crazy as that sounds, it's one of the things that helped push me to realize what my treasure is, what it is I'm seeking. But I started from there. So I had my book, which became really a platform for me to start sharing other things. So I don't really talk about it that much because now I read the book and I cringe, but it's called Lucky Code. It's a book. It's called Lucky Code, a guide for getting lucky in life, like living your best life. But it's really just a motivational, inspirational book, and help. It's more on the self-help side of things. And I used that as a platform because from there, people were asking me, how did it become a bestseller? You know, how do I write my own book? How do I market it? And from there, I started a little e-course where I was teaching people before Zoom was even popular, like teaching them how to do it. And then from there, I ended up teaching people about business as that grew. And I've been on like Amy Porterfield's podcast, Marketing Made Easy, and a few others. And then grew from there. And the podcast came about in 2018 or 19, 2018. It came in summer 2018. And I just started featuring some of my friends who were running amazing businesses. I was on there myself, initially just starting it up. And one of the first guests we had was Ty Hunter, who's Beyonce's longtime stylist and good friend. And from there, it just started to grow and started featuring other people in all different industries, speaking about how they grew their business, whether that's them as a personal brand or, you know, a product or service, and teaching different marketing and branding tactics.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know in addition to your book, you also have your own product now. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Absolutely. So my product is Best Period, which, well, the first products we have are menstrual cups, but Best Period is a menstrual care brand. And I say all the time, while menstrual cups are our first product, it's the genesis of a mega brand. We're a menstrual care brand, and we will have a lot more products even just this year coming out. But we're really here making periods fun, sustainable, comfortable, and cool for the first time. And those are words typically not synonymous with periods or period care. And I really wanted to change things up around. And it started actually having someone on my podcast, a friend of mine who was selling her product on Amazon, and she grew something so small from her house into a multi-million-dollar business in a year's time. And after I had spoken to her and she was saying the change she made in people's lives, I'm like, I want to create something that creates a physical, like something that manifests, something physically that I can manifest that really creates real change. You know, I've had a book, I've had e-courses that change lives, you know, here and there. You can touch 1,000 people if you have, you know, I had my Cubicle Ditch Academy course, which was helping thousands of people as well, but it was still confined to how many people I can assist, how many people can find me. And I'm like, no, I want to create real meaningful change to an infinite amount of people out there, and figuring out how I can do that. But I didn't know what it was going to be. So I spoke with her. I didn't know what it was going to be. And then my period came on and it hit me. And I'm like, I hate the menstrual cups I had tried in the past. I had a heavy flow, and I was really tired of just changing frequently pads and tampons. I knew there was better solutions out there for my body. I had tried multiple different menstrual cups, but they just leaked and didn't have enough capacity for my heavier flow days. And the reality is that people of color are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer from fibroids and have heavier flows in general. And there just wasn't anything on the market specifically that can address that. So I wanted to create something with us in mind, but also something that was comfortable enough to be worn if someone has a lighter flow, right? But I still wanted us to be covered with it. So that was the first thing I set out to do. And I had a list of things. I'm like, well, if it can't have all of these things that drive me nuts about cups, then I don't want it at all. So that was the first thing we went to. But at the end of the day, it's really just trying to assist people have their best period in general, and whatever that looks like. I say all the time, I'm like, we're in the period care aisle. We have other products coming. I'm like, but if someone says that the sweatpants out there make them feel terrible when they're bloating, then that could be something we consider, because we're helping people have the best period. So we're listening to customers and creating what they need.
Wow, that's amazing. And why specifically menstrual cups? So you said it was like you had tried them and they just weren't working.
Yeah. So I've known for a while that menstrual cups are better for our bodies, for the environment, and for our pockets. Something like 20 billion one-time use menstrual products end up in landfills alone just in North America every single year, which is a lot. So I really knew that was better for the environment. It clearly saves you money, because while you're spending a bit more upfront, they're usually between $30 to $40, $50, depending on where you go. But you don't have to buy pads or tampons for years. So you save money. And then on the body side of things, many people don't realize, but tampons can mess with pH potentially, depending on what ingredients are included in the cotton. And, so it could create disturbances there, but also it creates micro tears if the absorbency is higher than, your flow. So when you take it out, you actually create micro tears, which can create infections.
Ugh.
So there are a lot of things, and even pads have their downfalls as well with it. So I really wanted the bacteria sitting. So I wanted to create something that was more suitable for me, and something that, menstrual cups have existed, just so you know, since the 1930s. They've been around for a while. They've only recently in the 2000s started to come like mainstream, but I wanted to create something that obviously already exists, but something that was formed in a way that didn't exist yet. Because I believe with products, we can white label. People white label products all the time. You can and white labeling, for those of you listening, simply means that, many of the skincare companies do it. You're buying something that already exists and you're putting your label on it. However, I knew that if I did that, I'm not going to be solving any additional problems. That product already exists, so it isn't going to help. So we have custom molds to make it easier for insertion and removal, because that was a difficult problem for me. I got rid of those annoying little cotton bags they come with, other menstrual cups come with, because they create lint and they get wet and dirty. I'm like, no, I want a case, and I want it to be breathable, because that helps as well. So it was so many things I wanted to just check off the list. We wanted to create something that was unique, that did allow, like I said, for higher capacity, but comfortable enough to be worn on lighter flow days, or for people who have lighter flows as well. So really changing it in that way.
Wow.
That's why menstrual cup, was the first thing we chose.
Yeah. I was just so curious about it and why you specifically chose that. And then for our listeners who aren't familiar with a menstrual cup, there are different sizes. You have 2 sizes on your website. How do clients come to choose what fits best? How do they come to understand that?
So we have 2 sizes, and we do have a website quiz. So if someone goes on bestperiod.com, and that's period with a T, so bestperiod.com, they do have the option of clicking on the menstrual cup quiz and answering a couple questions. Takes about 30 seconds or less to get to which size works best for them. However, on the boxes, it's pretty clear as well. If you're under the age of 30, you haven't had, a birth, then the size 1 would be the best one for you. And then if you are over the age of 30 or have had kids, then the size 2 is the better option. The size 2 is a bit longer, and it's a bit wider in diameter as well. So that's why it's, for those who are slightly older, when your muscles tend to have, are a little bit more relaxed and things like that. But menstrual cups also hold more, which is something I didn't mention earlier, because I did mention capacity. But the reason we did menstrual cups was because I knew that they are higher capacity than pads and tampons. So our size 2 can hold up to 8 regular pads or tampons worth, whereas our size 1, and our size 1 can hold 6, which is higher than most brands' largest size. So we really wanted to make sure we had that, but at the same time, it didn't feel clunky or uncomfortable. So we created that custom design.
That's incredible. And can women wear it, or menstruators wear it all day?
So you can wear it longer than pads and tampons. You can wear it up to 12 hours at a time. Tampons, they recommend meaning gynos, recommend that you change it every 4 to 6 hours, but 8 hours is the absolute max you should have your tampon in, just to avoid TSS. And then with pads, you have up until the 8-hour mark. So it's tampon. With cups, you have up until 12 hours. So for many people, especially those who aren't, don't have super heavy flows, many of them can keep it in all day for the 12 hours, change when they come home from work or when they're getting the shower, and they're good to go after that. But for others, even if they do have a super heavy flow, it'll be less changes than they're used to expecting with a pad or tampon.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. And I know, can you explain can you explain how you decided on the name for Best Period?
Sure. So for us, I say it's a bit of a double entendre. I put my Jay-Z hat on as a rapper, because he does word play all the time, but Best Period is a play on words. So it's helping people to have their best period, like I said earlier, but it's also saying we're the best, period, with the T, like end of story, that's it. So I was explaining to you before we turned on that the word period tends to be, it's a play on the word period, just emphasized, meaning end of story, that's it, especially used in the queer and Black community, the word period used often. And I'm looking at the online definition. It says period with a T. It's usually used as an interjection. It originated from the word period. When period is used as an interjection, it just means end of discussion or tells us about an unappealable decision. So we're just saying it's the best, period. That's it. That's the end of story. Mic drop.
Incredible. Yes. Thank you. And I know you do a lot of work in your Give Back program in Bermuda, where you're from, and Sierra Leone. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Give Back, we actually have Give Back, it's all over. But two of the charities we are working with, one is in Bermuda called We Bleed Bermuda, and bleed is spelled like a small b, and then it's the word lead in like capital. So We Bleed Bermuda. And then it's Hope Academy that's in Sierra Leone, which is an all-girls school there. So we have an option on our site to donate menstrual cups, and we have a number of charities we work with in North America. We have the one charity in Bermuda, and we also have Hope Academy, which we've been working with. But with that, what we do is donate our menstrual cups. So we do it two ways. For every cup that's purchased, one gets donated anyway. And then we have the option for people to donate cups on the website. And those cups we donate to the charities we're working with specifically. And we give them and teach them as well, because specifically like Sierra Leone, many of them had never seen a menstrual cup, but what they had been using up until that point were rags that they're washing and cleaning each and every time. And when water is scarce, then you don't really want to be doing that. Mm-hmm. And they wanted another solution for them, because period poverty, a lot of people hear period poverty and they usually think of, countries similar to Sierra Leone, and that's not necessarily the case. In North America, there is a ridiculous amount of people that are living with period poverty. And just thinking about who you can pass on the street on any given day, if they're of menstruating age, then they likely are experiencing it. And so many school counselors say the same thing, where they say people skip school during the days or weeks of the week of the period because they just don't have what they need, so some schools have been providing it. But that's why it was important for us to help with that, because we have a period product. It just makes sense. And We Bleed Bermuda, it's similar, where we just give our menstrual cups to them as well.
Wow, that's incredible. I can't believe that every sale you donate one as well. That's absolutely amazing.
So that one we actually have in partnership with our manufacturer. So every time we order, if we order 10,000, they're making an extra 10,000 for us.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. How did you go about designing your product?
So with it, I sketched it initially, but I worked with an engineer and with a team, and of course with the manufacturers, because it has to work with the machine. And from there we moved forward. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And what is your favorite productivity hack as an entrepreneur?
I have so many things. I've recently been playing with like a custom template on Notion, which I love because it helps keep me organized. But when it comes to productivity, it's something that I guess is so simple, but it is beneficial for me. And that is batch producing. So even when it comes to something like a podcast, I tend to do many of my episodes same day, or at least in 1 week. And then from there, send them through to my podcast editor and get them done. With our YouTube videos over on Best Period, I post 2 times a week. So I want to ensure that that content's available. So on any given day, it's usually on Tuesdays, I will film 4 videos so that we have at least a couple weeks ahead.
That's amazing. Yes, that sounds great. So we can all like put that in our file of batch producing, as well as looking into Notion, you said?
Yeah, so Notion is similar. I don't know if you've heard of Trello, but it's similar. I used to use Trello to organize and create boards and things like that. But recently I've been using Notion. And I mean, you can break down your boards, you can tag and, tag people on it. There's a lot of Asanas similar, but I find Notion is just a lot more visually pleasing, and I'm able to just organize it the way I like, with the colors I like. And I use it specifically for like content. So my Instagram, my newsletter, YouTube, podcasts, like they're all separate Notion boards, and I can see the content more clearly, so I know what's happening.
Oh, great. I'll have to look that up. That sounds great. And one thing that we always ask on this podcast is, what is your definition of womanhood?
That's such an interesting question. To me, it's just being, right? Because my definition is going to change by the day, by the week, by the month, by the year. So next year, what it is likely isn't going to be what it is to me today. So it's truly just being the person that I am each and every day, just waking up authentically me and doing things that just feed my soul at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely definition. Being, like you said, it's continuing to change. It'll change like in the next 10 minutes or whatever.
It's one of those things. I asked the question, what does freedom mean to you at the end of every podcast episode for the guests? And every time I hear it, I'm like, if I was asked this question, like it would change so often because, it's the ability to be. That's all it breaks down to, the ability to be you when you want to, how you want to at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And how can people find out more about Best Period and your podcast?
For sure. So you can follow Best Period on Instagram. So that's BEST.PERIODT. So period with a T at the end. And we're at bestperiod.com as well. And we're on TikTok at Best Period. We're on YouTube at Best Period. We're everywhere at Best Period. And then the podcast is Freedom Slave Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. So we're everywhere there.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Alice, for inviting me.